You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Ninja One understands that IT teams today are stretched thin, trying to manage too many disconnected tools. So they built a platform that brings them all together. Ninja One unifies endpoint management, autonomous patching, backup, and remote access into a single intelligent platform. That means fewer tools, lower costs, higher efficiency, and a team that has the bandwidth and confidence to stay ahead. Unify IT to simplify work with Ninja One. Learn more at ninjaone.com.
This episode is brought to you by Cologuard. Do you know what's really scary? Not screening for colon cancer when you turn 45. The Cologuard test is non-invasive, requires no special prep or time off work, and ships right to your door. In just 3 simple steps, Cologuard takes the scare out of colon cancer screening. If you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about the Cologuard test. Cologuard is available by prescription only. Learn more or request a prescription today at Cologuard.com/screen.
This episode is brought to you by our Patreon members. Thank you so much.
Join our Patreon for extra episodes, interviews, extra content, and to help support the podcast and help us continue to do the work we do.
Go to patreon.com/ancienthistoryfangirl to learn more. There is no beast in the Gevaudan. It's snowing again. The white, freezing snow falls thick on your coat as you huddle shivering beneath the rock outcrop. Your last kill is still warm on your mouth, and you lick the blood off your muzzle. The pain in your side has faded to a dull throb, and it hurts to breathe. You can hear them calling, shouting, with their guns and their horses and dogs, looking for you, following the latest blood trail out of your poor, battered body. You hate them. You'd kill them all if you could. You turn and stretch your neck to lick your wounds, the one on your shoulder still bleeding and fresh, the stab wound on your chest still hurts whenever you take a breath. You were born strong, your strength rising in you whenever you see the upright 2-legged enemy propelling you forward, propelling your teeth to bare and your jaws to snap, but your strength is starting to ebb. It will be all right. You just need to sleep, and then to eat again. You curl around yourself and wait for the hunt to pass. They will not find you here. For a species so powerful, they are atrocious hunters. It is one of the many things you've learned since your escape. You can't remember where you were born. You remember your mother, soft tongue and soft fur and a comforting scent. But you cannot remember being a cub. All you remember is the cage and the beatings and the chains and the ropes and the 2-legged demons, their blunted teeth bared, a terrible intelligence gleaming in their eyes. So many times they hurt you. You did not understand why. You hurled yourself against the walls of your cage, and one day those walls broke down and you ran into the freezing forests. Now every time you see a 2-legs, you take your revenge. It's not that you are a bad beast. You never learned to hunt in a pack, never learned to hunt at all. The 2-legs threw you meat when they thought of it, often rotten and crawling with maggots. Now you hunt them because you can. You hunt them because they are easy prey for a beast who never learned to do it properly. You hunt them because you are hungry. You hunt them because they terrify you, because they hurt you, because they never stopped hurting you and you never knew why. It's not that you are a bad beast. It's just that you're hungry and angry and afraid. Fear is the water you swim in. But the woods are just another cage. You grow colder and hungrier each day. Every time you feed yourself, it is a terrible risk. You've been shot and stabbed countless times. It's nearly been the death of you, but not yet. No. The dogs bay and the hunters scour the woods, but you are not dead yet. And before you go, you hope you take more of them with you. I'm Jenny Williamson.
And I'm Jen McMenemy.
And this is Ancient History Fangirl. In our last episode, we detailed the rise of the Beast of the Gevaudan, some of its most gruesome attacks that we know about in detail, and the doomed efforts of 4 men. local dragoon leader Duhamel, the father-son professional wolf-hunting duo the Denevals, and Antoine, the king's personal gun-bearer. At the end of Antoine's tenure as Lord of the Hunt on September 20th, 1765, I would say maybe roughly a year and a few months after the bloodbath started, he shot a huge wolf, or maybe a hyena, that everyone believed was the beast of the Gevaudan. They took it to Versailles and had it stuffed and displayed in the king's garden. The king showered Antoine with rewards and accolades. Everyone believed the beast was finished. For 2 months after Antoine killed his big wolf, the Gevaudan was silent. Then the killings came roaring back. The beast was very much alive.
And to be very clear, I believe that Antoine killed this big wolf and maybe paid a taxidermist to embellish what it looked like a little bit to make sure it looked beastly enough. But that's my fan fiction.
You think he sensationalized something, Jen?
Would not surprise me. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I can't imagine anyone involved in this story would have done that at any point.
No, and I can't imagine that the press would go for something like that. That doesn't feel right to me.
I mean, I can't imagine Antoine would have tried to pass a wolf off as the beast after a long legacy of other people, including possibly him, trying to pass the wolf off as a beast.
Well, I think if he did try to do this, he probably embellished said wolf to make it look more beastly with the help of a good taxidermist. But what do I know? I'm just a random.
Well, I think it's a really smart suggestion, actually, because he would have had a great incentive to do this. The king showered him with all kinds of rewards and rank and money and all sorts of things.
At this point in time, I'm pretty sure, definitely later, and not that much later, there were people who were passing off like mermaids and other things that were clearly some taxidermy gone a little bit awry. So I don't think I'm like reaching that far. Particularly going into this time, this is sort of like a time of curio cabinets and like curiosities and what they would call oddities and that kind of stuff. So I feel like that was also very much in vogue and fashion. If it isn't quite there at its pinnacle yet, it's coming to that point. So that's kind of where I'm drawing from.
Yeah, and I think that would explain why people standing in front of this taxidermied wolf couldn't agree if it was a wolf or a hyena.
Well, yeah, because it was both. Maybe it also had a lion's tail. We don't know. Moving on. So at first, all it was whispers and rumors of more attacks. These were hard to corroborate and easily dismissed. But then, on December 2nd, 2 young boys were viciously attacked, and that was quickly followed by a bloodbath. The next few months into 1766, this period was a particularly deadly time for beast attacks. But here's the thing. This time, the crown was over it. They had killed the beast. They'd taxidermied the fuck out of this weird animal. Look, you can see it. It's all stuffed. It's in the king's garden. It's over. The killer of the beast had been rewarded. Whatever was going on in the Gevaudan now, it was probably just ordinary wolves. Come on, folks. It's just ordinary wolves. And the people in the Gevaudan had to stop looking to the crown to solve their problems. Like, go on. The Lord helps those who help themselves. There's a fun narrative that sprung up around this time. This whole beast of the Gevaudan problem was really caused by hysterical pregnant women and over-imaginative children fooling fine, upstanding men into believing their silly beast stories. Let's blame women and children for their savage attacks.
It's women being hysterical. That is what's happening.
It's all that moon blood that's been stored up from not having had a baby. That's why they're hysterical.
Except some of them were pregnant, but even still.
Yeah, but they were pregnant, so they had no more moon blood until the baby comes. See? That's why they're crazy. Need to just give birth.
See, whether or not you have a baby, you are crazy if you're a woman. That's the moral of the story. And you're the problem. It's you. So, in 1766, Immanuel Kant used the beast of the Gevaudan to illustrate how dangerous ignorance was to the public order. He used the beast as an example. It was women and children, the narrative went, who had terrorized and gaslit the intelligent men of France into mistaking, quote, a common wolf for a hyena, and that in spite of the fact that any sensible person could see that there are not likely to be any African predators prowling around the forests of France. The reassuring idea that sane and right-thinking men had been victimized by superstitious women, over-imaginative children, and credulous peasants provided convenient cover for male embarrassment.
This doesn't feel like anything in modern times, right, Jenny? Like, I can't see any correlation between how some men feel right now.
I just don't recognize this at all in human behavior. No. So there was a lot of wounded masculinity here, to be clear. The beast had defeated or evaded several very manly professional hunter-type men. The king himself was getting mocked on the international stage, and this after France just lost a war in a very emasculating fashion.
Now the peasantry were getting blamed for their own victimization. They are gaslighting themselves.
They're being gaslit by the king.
And also by themselves, because there is no problem in the Gevaudan, Jenny. There is no problem.
There is no beast in the Gevaudan.
Anyway, the king very much wanted all of this beast of the Gevaudan nonsense to be over so he could stop being mocked by friends and enemies alike. And Antoine had given him that. He gave him this incredibly weird hide of an animal that could not be real. He had this big wolf stuffed and mounted in the garden. It was kind of an eyesore, but you know what? It was there. People could see it. This should be done. The people of the Gevaudan and their wild werewolf stories were now on their own as far as the king was concerned. So, for the period of 1766 and 1767, a period of 2 whole years, the crown ignored the Gevaudan and the Gevaudan turned inward. They tried lots of different things. Mass hunts like before, but also mass poisonings. People baited dead animals with poison and left them out for the beast. Hundreds of wolves were killed, including roughly 99 from poison alone. Still, the attacks continued. Then, on June 18th, a local man walking around in the woods near Mount Mouchet saw a large animal jump out of the bushes. Without hesitating, he shot it dead. This man was Jean Chastel, and the animal was, or at least people came to believe it was, the beast of the Gevaudan. Are we finally done with it?
Well, we think so. There are people who debate whether what Jean Chastel shot was in fact the beast of the Gevaudan, but that is the prevailing narrative.
Well, that's it, guys. End of this episode. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
That's it for this week. You wish, Jen, you wish.
I know. They're looking at the timestamp on this, on like the episode of how much more there is to go. And they're like, we can't be done yet.
No, because we have to talk about what the beast was. So, the end of the beast was kind of anticlimactic. No epic battle. Chastel simply pulled the trigger and the beast died at his feet. At first, the man thought it was just a wolf. At 109 pounds, it wasn't even as big a wolf as the one Antoine had bagged last year. But upon closer examination, there were a few things that were weird about this body. An autopsy was performed by Roche-Étienne Marin. How am I going to say this? Roche-Étienne Marin. It's Marin, but I want to say Marin, and then I sound too French.
I don't know. You do you. I'm going to stumble, so...
An autopsy was performed by Roche-Étienne Marin, the king's notary. This has been preserved in the Marin report. It's spelled M-A-R-I-N. If you want to say it all French, you say Marin. But I'm just going to say the Marin report because that's easier for me. In the report, the animal's head was described as monstrous. Its coat was a mix of red, gray, and white, not a typical coat pattern for wolves. It seemed to have a, quote, singular membrane. It could extend over its eyes at will, like a nictating membrane. Many descriptions of the beast said it had sparkling eyes. And even weirder, its skeleton was more flexible than that of a wolf, its bones arranged in such a way that it had, quote, the freedom to turn around with ease. That's weird, right? Does that sound weird to you?
That sounds really weird to me. It's got like almost like an owl's rotating head, right? Or am I getting that wrong?
I mean, it kind of sounds like that, and like what is described in the Marin report is a little bit hard to parse. You know, a lot of modern historians and people who study animals have looked at this and come away with very different conclusions. I thought that the nictating membrane was going to tell us more, but it turns out actually both cats and canids have that. So it doesn't tell us as much as I thought it would.
Yeah, because remember, like, there is some truth in whatever this story is. It's got to have some foot in the truth. If it's too fantastical, then it just becomes something that we don't believe could actually be real, right? But this was real. It was killing people.
All things are really up for debate in the smoke and mirrors world of the Gevaudan, okay?
Okay, something was killing people in the Gevaudan. Whether or not it was a beast, a human, a combination of both, something was killing people. There could have even been some mass hysteria. Many things can be true at once, but we'll get there.
I'm not disputing that something was killing people. I'm not trying to gaslight the Gevaudan. I'm not Louis XV. Frequently am mistaken for him, but I am not.
It's the pants, Jenny. You wear those wild pants that he wore, and it's just like, what do you think people are going to think?
It's the codpiece. I should leave it at home, but I just don't.
You really should. I mean, it's not as flattering as you think it is. I'm just saying.
Maybe it's one of those things I could pull off in my 20s, but now, no.
Know that anyone could, short of maybe one or two professional wrestlers. And even then. Chastel loaded up the corpse and took it to Versailles. Along the way, the body started to decompose and stink, as one does. By the time it got to Versailles, it was so decomposed that it was pretty much unidentifiable as anything except a rotting, stinking corpse.
Isn't that convenient?
The king, who had once bestowed honors and accolades on those who had survived or allegedly killed the beast, took one look at the low-born Chastel and his beast, imperiously insulted the man, and ordered the beast's body to be buried without further examination, and did not offer even 1 penny in rewards. I got my beast already. You people are not going to keep bringing me weird dead corpses like cats, trying to get treats for it. No.
I mean, if you think about it, that is kind of reasonable.
No, I mean, you have to draw a line under it, right? At some point in time.
Yeah, you have to have healthy boundaries about this, okay?
Yeah. Antoine, the king's personal gun bearer, got to keep his official titles and recognition as the one who had killed the beast until the end of his days.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use, helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize, so you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
Hey, how are you? Ready to go for a run?
Running connects us to a rush of energy that flows through our world. The cheers of friends that unlock a new gear within us. The intersection of interests that inspires a run crew. The support that gets you over the finish line. Connection is why we move forward and what inspires us to keep going. Let's run there. Learn more at brooksrunning.com.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Even so, rumors sprang up around Chastel in the weeks, months, and years after this event, mainly trying to explain why he was like the one guy who could do this, after so many people shot the beast and it walked away. Some whispered that he used a silver bullet to kill the animal, melted down from a religious amulet, an element of werewolf lore that has survived well into the present day. In the 1800s, a gentleman scholar started the rumor that Chastel had made his fateful shot only after hearty prayer, or after sitting down and pretending to read his Bible to make himself an easy target. They wanted to make this sort of a religious thing.
No, not just religion. Christian religion.
Well, yeah. They wanted to make this all about Christianity. So that is how the Beast of the Gevaudan died. In the end, between the years of 1764 and 1767, approximately 116 people died, many more were wounded, and hundreds of wolves were killed. The reign of terror on humans and wolves alike lasted 3 brutal years. Or 4 brutal years. How many years? 3. It's 3. It's 3 brutal years. So at this point, we're left with one dead beast, maybe, and a lot of questions. Chief among those questions is this: what the fuck just happened? What was this beast? To this day, nobody knows for sure. Theories abound, from the most pragmatic to the most woo. And let's do what I've been looking forward to this whole time, Jen. Let's talk about some of those theories.
All right, let's talk about the first theory, which was it was a wolf, or many wolves. A lot of people believed, and still believe today, that the beast was just a wolf, or as I said, maybe multiple wolves. Even in the Marin report, where they list all the weird qualities of the beast's body, they also say the animal, quote, seemed to us to be a wolf, but extraordinary and very different in its figure and proportions from the wolves that we see in this country, end quote. But still, they're saying it's a wolf.
Just kind of a weirdly deformed wolf.
Yeah, like too big and just strange looking.
Its bones are in the wrong place.
So, it is true that the Gevaudan, like other places in its time, had a wolf problem. The Gevaudan was a poor area without a lot of farms and lots of thick, undeveloped forest. Great terrain for wolf dens, as well as people taking their livestock very near those forests to graze, i.e., wolf bait.
As we've been saying. Not to mention, during the Little Ice Age, it wasn't just the humans who were hungry. Animals were hungry too. Wolves who ordinarily would have avoided people were venturing closer to human settlements out of starvation and desperation. This led to more wolf attacks. This had to be going on in this area regardless of what the beast was doing. One theory suggests that the wolves of the Gevaudan, in particular, I've seen this written, had developed a taste for human flesh during war. There have been documented cases of intensified wolf attacks in the aftermath of wars, including after the Second World War in Russia, according to the Gevaudan Tragedy by Karl-Heinz Take, which is a book we'll talk about more in a minute. Wolves often start out scavenging battlefields and then move on to live victims. This could have happened here, the theory goes. And remember, France is just coming out of a war, the 7 Years' War. Now, the 7 Years' War, part of it happened in Europe. Not a lot of it, if any of it, happened in this region. So I think the theory is that the wolves would have had to have traveled there.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we are going to keep talking about is, in my opinion, this is the Little Ice Age, and when you have times of real nutritional deficits, things happen to animals and humans that are not what we would consider to be normal, right? Like, you get different diseases from having vitamin deficiencies, you can have different sort of growth defects and stunts and changes in how the body develops as a result. So to me, it doesn't surprise me that these wolves would have looked and behaved differently. This is a very extreme time that would have made extreme changes to the body of these animals and also the people. You know, you're talking about people who are very nutrient deficient.
There's a counterpoint to the theory that the wolves in the Gevaudan had developed a taste for human flesh due to war. And that is that there wasn't much actual combat in the Gevaudan region during the most recent war, the 7 Years' War. But this is a quote from Karl-Heinz Take, quote, "The French scholar Gervais-François Magnet de Marolles speculated at this time that the beast was wolves which had gained a taste for human flesh by the bodies of soldiers killed in action. So maybe the Gevaudan was beset by wolves who had developed a taste for human flesh in war, or just because they had been starving. But here is my problem with the wolf theory. The Gevaudan had a lot of wolves anyway. This Little Ice Age had been going on since the 1400s, so if there were, wolves that were acting abnormally, whatever their behavior was, couldn't have been that abnormal by now, theoretically. Wolves weren't new. They had been in this area as long as there were people in this area. So the people of the Gevaudan would have been used to defending their flocks from wolves. They'd have known what a wolf looks like and what a wolf attack looks like. If the beast was really just a wolf or many wolves, why were the accounts coming out of the Gevaudan so confused?
This brings us to another theory, that it could have been a feral dog, a feral Yorkie, or a wolf dog. This is another option, that potentially the beast was actually a dog, a really big feral dog, or maybe a wolf-dog hybrid, a cross between a wolf and a dog. Remember the words of its very first recorded victim, Marie-Jeanne Vallée. It was, quote, like a wolf, but not a wolf. There are a few intriguing clues that point in this direction. For instance, remember when Antoine, the last of the 3 professional hunters, first killed a large wolf and then flushed out its mate and 2 puppies? One of the puppies was found to have dew claws, or an extra set of large claws. This is a mutation primarily found in wolf dogs, although I've seen them in small dogs too.
It's not necessarily ruling out just like a feral dog.
Yeah, like Tris has them. And he's a Jack Russell Chihuahua mix. I'm sure Jake probably does too, but I haven't checked.
Here's another intriguing clue in the vein of it was either a feral dog or a wolf dog. Several eyewitnesses described a large white heart on the chest of the beast. It's even in the Marin report, which is actually like probably the biggest clue to me that this actually was the beast is that it had this heart on its chest. This is what it says in the Marin report. Quote, "It had on its chest a large white mark in the shape of a heart." In 2016, journalist and author Jean-Claude Bourret, who published the book The Secret of the Beast of Gevaudan in 2010, constructed and displayed a model of the Beast of the Gevaudan in Paris based on eyewitness accounts and drawings from the time. It had a heart on its chest. According to him, that heart was characteristic of an ancient Roman breed of war dog. How wild is that?
Ooh.
Right? Bourret reached the conclusion based on his research that the Beast of the Gevaudan was a cross between an ancient Roman war dog, possibly part of a population living in the forest of Gevaudan that had gone feral sometime during the Roman occupation of this area, and a wolf. This area is in the southwest of France, the Gevaudan, and during the Gallo-Roman Wars between Julius Caesar and Vercingetorix, it was a hotspot. The name Gevaudan comes from the word Gabale, the name of a Gallic people who fought alongside Vercingetorix against Caesar. Julius Caesar himself did not mention using dogs in war, although he does mention a very large breed of Irish wolfhounds used by the Gauls in war. I looked into this a little bit. I can't say that I had a lot of time to do a giant deep dive into whether and how Romans used dogs in war. I couldn't find anything about a special breed of war dog with a heart on his chest. I'm very curious about where he's getting that information. I asked Vegetius, and he did not have much information for me. He does mention dogs, but it's only once, and it's about hunting dogs, not war dogs. There are some examples of a breed called Molossian hounds that were known to the Greeks and Romans, and this would have been like a big dog with a broad muzzle and heavy sort of flaps of skin, like dewlaps around its neck. I've seen pictures of these dogs. They almost look a little bit like bulldogish, like a cross between a bloodhound and a bulldog, I guess. But it's clearly a dog, and I couldn't find anything about those dogs having a heart on their chest either, so it's a big question mark here.
I think maybe, like, the heart on the chest, I think it might just be a mutation of this one beast. I mean, I had an Irish Wolfhound mix as a kid. It was my first dog, and he was big enough you could ride him. He was a massive dog, and when he stood up on his hind legs, he was like as tall as my dad. But I can see where the heart on the chest is coming from because, like, I mean, you see this with horses too. Like, where their fur comes in sometimes can look a little like heart-shaped, and if it's a different color, I could see how you would think, oh, that's a heart. Triss has kind of like a white patch on his chest, and like around him is darker skin, so it kind of like I could see from a distance to be like, that dog has a heart on his chest. He doesn't, but you know. So yeah, like the other thing is it could be this one type of wolf dog hybrid or whatever that came from one family that had bred like a whole bunch of them. So here's another possibility. This possibility is the escaped hyena or lion theory. Another possibility is that the beast of the Gevaudan was actually an exotic animal not native to France and set loose from someone's menagerie.
Menagerie.
Jenny, you mean some poor, wealthy noble found themselves in the starving time and couldn't afford to feed their exotic animal and instead set it loose upon the countryside to ravage the peasants?
That sounds about right.
I'm so disappointed in them. I thought they were supposed to look after us peasants.
This is why the French rebelled in 1789, the French Revolution. We're a few decades before that at this point.
This is why we need a democracy.
There is no beast in the Gevaudan.
Can you see why nobles letting loose exotic animals when they can't afford to feed them anymore? Those animals ravaging the population and then them gaslighting you into being like, there is no animal. It's all in your head. Makes me feel something akin to what might be happening now. But moving on, let me tell you about these menageries. So, at this point in time, menageries were a staple of the aristocracy in the 1700s. Noble families throughout Europe have been collecting them since as early as the 1200s, or maybe the 800s, or even as far back as the Roman Empire, the Assyrians, the Persians, and far earlier than that, depending on what we're counting as a menagerie.
Menagerie.
You know, outside the Tower of London, there are some like kind of wiry stone sculptures of like lions and stuff that used to be in the Tower of London as part of the menagerie there.
Yeah, there used to be one in the Tower of London. I think that's the one that started in 1200 AD that they list as like the first menagerie. But then if you look further into it, you find out there are some from further back. And then it's like kind of a whole rabbit hole about exactly when people in Europe started having menageries. And you can trace it back to ancient Rome, and you can trace it back from there to like ancient Persia and different. And I'm sure in China and, different places like that, they also had these. Like, this is not uncommon for wealthy people to do anywhere, really.
I mean, as long as people could keep an exotic animal in a cage, they tried, which is awful.
Well, the thing is, too, like an exotic animal like a lion or a hyena would need a lot of meat to keep it fed, right? Like, it would be not cheap to feed an animal like that.
And also, the climate is wrong for this animal. Like, this is not their native climate. It's much colder at this point because it is the Little Ice Age. But the climate is wrong. Just throwing it out into the woods they're not necessarily prepared to deal with that kind of cold. Anyway, the point is that people in France at this time, particularly wealthy people, would have conceivably had menageries.
You keep saying menageries. What's a menagerie?
It's like a negligee. It's a menagerie of lingerie.
That's what I call my closet.
I call my closet the pit where everything goes to die, and then I cry.
I call mine the menagerie of lingerie.
And negligee.
And negligees. That's all I wear. That and my Louis XV codpiece.
So, an escaped exotic for this area animal might explain why people at the time had so much trouble identifying the beast. Perhaps the wolf was the closest thing that they could recognize in this beast.
So the two exotic species that I have seen suggested the most as potential beast candidates are the hyena and the lion. And let's take a look at both. Let's look at the hyena first. Many people, including eyewitnesses, believed that the beast was a hyena. Some of the clues include the dark dorsal stripe down its back, resembling a hyena's stripe or crest, the very large chest and strong front legs proportional to its narrower hips and back legs, and perhaps the tail. Hyena tails vary depending on the species from what I can see, but many are short, curl upward, and seem to have a slightly floofy brush at the end, which actually doesn't really sound a lot like how people described the beast's tail. Some descriptions of the broad face and muzzle of the beast with its pointed ears do harken back to a hyena, however. A lot of the drawings from eyewitnesses kind of look hyena-like.
So, the lion. A lot of eyewitnesses from the time insisted that the beast was a hyena. But we've found that more modern historians believe that the beast was more likely to have been a lion. One researcher, Karl-Hans Take, wrote a whole book about this called The Gevaudan Tragedy, the disastrous campaign of a deported beast, in quotation marks, beast.
So we'll try to sum up some of the points that I found the most compelling from his book here, and these include, first off, the beast's attack pattern. The beast, like lions, was an ambush predator, known for surprise attacks. It would wait between buildings and jump out at people. It was always like leaping out from bushes and stuff. That's how a lion hunts. Some describe it as, quote, creeping about on its belly like a snake. You watch like hunting cats do that, right? Like sneaking up on their prey, or a hunting lion. Also, even though many thought that there were more than one beast, you only ever saw one at a time. There is no documented account of anyone encountering two or more beasts. Wolves hunt in packs. And so do lions, most likely, with an exception, young adolescent males.
Because, like with lions, like you have a pride and usually there's just like one like head stud lion, right? They run off all the other ones. So you would have a lot of young adolescent males out there sort of being a lone wolf unless they formed their own pack. So the next thing is the beast's habitat. Take points out that the beast was only observed retreating to the woods when it was wounded or trying to carry a meal to a place of safety. Those who came upon it unawares came upon it lounging on rocks in open fields, suggesting it preferred the open country, like a lion.
Like a lot of cats like to be up on perches. They like to be able to see far. And lions are, accustomed to the open savanna. Like they like to be in places where they can see a long way off. Wolves tend to live in the woods more. Anyway, so another one is the beast's resilience to wounds. The gunshot hits that the beast took, according to Take, would have felled a wolf. The beast must have been a larger, tougher animal than a wolf to withstand all the wounds it took. A lion is much larger and tougher than a wolf, just with, bigger musculature, a tougher hide. This is the theory, and it could have withstood more punishment.
The beast's killing technique. Lions often go for the throat of prey, either suffocating that prey or ripping out their throat, like the beast did. Interestingly, Take points out that the beast would often rip out the throat of a victim and toss tissue away, going specifically for the blood found in the carotid artery. It didn't seem interested in the meat. Why would the beast not eat the meat of its victims? Take suggests the beast was interested in blood. It wanted to drink. It was thirsty. Or it was poor in something like iron, which you see a lot of in blood. If my theory about a nutrient deficit could be true, it might be that what it wants is that iron-rich blood. Not having enough iron can make you weak.
I think that the thing about iron deficiency could be in play here. I think everybody in this environment was nutrient deficient because nobody was eating well. There are not a lot of accounts that say that the beast was so starved that its teeth were falling out or whatever. So I really don't know what else it was eating besides human beings. I don't think anybody knows. It wasn't eating like the flocks of the humans, because that was like a specific thing in the lore, is that it wasn't going for people's herd animals. So whatever else it was eating, it was something in the forest. I really don't know. So let's get back to the theory that the beast was drinking from its victims rather than eating. And Take has a specific theory about that. It is weird that this would be happening because the Gevaudan was a water-rich environment. Why would the beast have to risk injury killing a human to drink from their necks? Except, bear in mind that it was a little ice age right now, as we keep reminding you. Especially in the winter, that water would have been largely frozen. But even when it wasn't, Take believes that it was just too cold for the beast. This was an exotic animal from Africa, according to this theory. Cold water would drop the beast's temperature beyond where it wanted to be. If the beast was used to warmer weather, African weather maybe, perhaps it was trying to quench its thirst and stay warm at the same time by drinking body temperature blood. That's the theory.
This is Jen.
And Jenny.
From Ancient History Fangirl, and we're here to tell you about Jenny's scorching historical romantasy based on Alaric of the Visigoths' Enemy of My Dreams. Amanda Boucher, best-selling author of the Kingmaker Chronicle, says, quote, "This book has everything: high-stakes action, grit, ferocity, and blazing passion. Julia and Alaric are colliding storms against a backdrop of the brutal dangers of ancient Rome. They'll do anything to carve their piece out of this treacherous world and not just survive, but rule."
Enemy of My Dreams is available wherever books are sold.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney+.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
Gary the Snake.
And your last name?
The Snake.
Dream Team. New habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home. Zootopia 2, now available on Disney+, rated PG. And right now you can get Disney+ and Hulu for just $4.99 a month for 3 months with a special limited time offer. Ends March 24th. After 3 months, plan auto-renews at $12.99 a month. Terms apply.
Hey, Sal.
Hank, what's going on? We haven't worked a case in years.
I just bought my car at Carvana, and it was so easy. Too easy.
Think something's up?
You tell me. They got thousands of options. Found a great car at a great price. And it got delivered the next day.
It sounds like Carvana just makes it easy to buy your car, Hank.
Yeah, you're right. Case closed.
Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
Is there a baby in your life who's about to start solid foods? This can be such a confusing and stressful time. As a mom of 7, I really struggled with spoon feeding my oldest baby. But once I realized that babies can safely feed themselves real, wholesome foods using the principles of baby-led weaning, feeding the rest of my babies became an actually enjoyable experience instead of something that I used to dread. Hi, I'm Katie Ferraro, college nutrition professor and dietitian specializing in baby-led weaning, and I host the Baby-Led Weaning Made Easy podcast. Each week, we cover evidence-based, safe infant feeding practices for parents and caregivers of babies who are 6 to 12 months of age. So, if you're confused by all the conflicting info you hear about starting solid foods, or you want easy, actionable tips on how to safely prep food for your baby, or introduce allergenic foods, or figure out when to drop a milk feed, we cover all that and more, plus interviews with the world's leading feeding experts in 2 new episodes each week. Search Baby-Led Weaning wherever you listen to podcasts, and happy feeding.
Take also highlights the descriptions of the beast that resemble a lion. The big chest in proportion to the narrow waist and hips, especially for male lions. I mean, this is a very trim runway lion. The coloring, the dorsal stripe, which some lions have, and the long tufted tail, which in most eyewitness descriptions seems more lion-like than hyena-like. What you could also have is due, again, to a nutrient deficiency. This lion might have had patchy fur. You might have been able to see more of that dorsal stripe because of how its bones, its spine bones were sticking up, you know? So even Duhamel described the beast like this, and this is a quote from Take. Quote, "This animal has the size of a 1-year-old bull. Its paws are as strong as those of a bear, with 6 claws, each that are as long as fingers. The mouth is extraordinarily big. The chest is as strong as that of a horse. The body is as long as that of a leopard. The tail is as thick as an arm and at least 4 feet long. The hair on its head is blackish. The eyes are as big as those of a calf, and they sparkle. The ears are as short as those of a wolf and are upright. The fur on its belly is whitish. The fur of the body is red with a black stripe, with the width of 4 fingers from the neck to the base of the tail. This animal is a monster whose father is a lion. It remains open what the mother is." So that's the end of the quote. And the only thing that doesn't quite fit right here are the ears. A lion's ears are round. Duhamel describes short, upright ears.
So where Take eventually lands is that the beast must have been a lion, probably an adolescent male who had escaped from a menagerie and was too young to have grown like, a big lion mane. What I like about his account is the compassion Take shows for the beast. Several of his most interesting insights come from considering things from the beast's perspective and the trauma it must have faced as an escaped menagerie animal, stuck in a very hostile environment, hungry and freezing, where it was brutally attacked nearly every time it tried to feed and or drink, depending on what it was doing. He made me think about the story differently, which I thought was really interesting.
Seeing where we are in today's day and age, I'm like, first off, this poor baby animal, where I'm currently living down in Florida, which isn't that far from me, they set loose, I think, a lot of pythons. And pythons were not native to the area. And they became an invasive species that now they have to, handle how they're going to, cope with them because they're killing lots of wildlife. And it's not their fault. They don't belong there. And do you know armadillos have started migrating further north? They're now in South Carolina. They're not supposed to be that far north. And they're considered an invasive species. And if you see them, you're supposed to report them. My poor babies.
Here's a quote from Taki, who is coming at it from the assumption that it is a lion that had escaped from a menagerie or was released from a menagerie. Quote, "The typical attack scenario included the rushing of witnesses to the rescue of the victim. No attack was without risk for the beast, which was hurt often enough. It had to carefully consider whom it would prey on, and even then could often only eat undisturbed when it carried off its victim to a sheltered site. It succeeded in doing this most quickly with children who were light and offered the least resistance."
Here's one telling example of what we mean. One early September day, the beast chased an 18-year-old girl, Isabeau Pachal, in a field. She escaped by climbing into a nearby cart. Instead of jumping into the cart, the beast tried to dislodge her by bumping or nudging at the cart. That's weird, right?
The question is, why did the beast nudge the cart instead of jumping into the cart? Take inserts a bit of fan fiction in explaining why the beast just nudged at the cart without jumping in. I think it's informed fan fiction. Quote, "If the incident took place as it was handed down, then it could have appeared risky to the beast to jump onto the cart because it had been driven through France penned in a cart, which must have been a very cruel torture for the animal. Isabeau's cart with its side walls of wooden bars or planks might have reminded the beast of that wheeled transport box in which it was once caught. Cats have brains and brilliant memories. They think associatively and link observations to experiences, but they are only rudimentarily capable of logical reasoning. This applies even more to human technology. The beast could not know that it could leave Isabeau's cart after jumping onto the loading area without being captured again." So basically what he's saying is that the beast didn't jump into the cart because it had trauma around carts, because it had been transported in a cart from its home country to France as a baby.
That's a fascinating point. Like, really, really interesting. I wouldn't have thought of it that way, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what's cool about it is that he finds, it's really worth reading if you're interested in this. Like, he finds these little bits of, like, the beast behavior and finds, like, all these interesting ways to explain something weird and unexplainable based on seeing things from the beast perspective like that. And it does seem persuasive, right? But here's a problem that I have with the lion theory, and for that matter, this also applies to the hyena theory. These menageries were owned by aristocratic families, as we've discussed. Those families in the Gevaudan were all involved in the hunt in one way or another. Wouldn't they have known if an animal went missing from their menagerie? Wouldn't they have said something? I mean, this is a problem that's been going on for 2 years at a certain point. If they didn't say something out of fear of reprisal, wouldn't the locals in the area have known? What about people who worked on their estate and had seen the menagerie? I mean, they needed people from the area to come in and like feed the animals and take care of the animals and clean out the cages and stuff sometimes, right? Wouldn't some rumor have leaked?
Hold my beer, because I'm coming in hot with some theories. First off, I think it is highly likely that if one of these animals was let go into the wild by a noble family, there is no fucking way in hell once it started killing women and children that they would own up to it. No way.
But everybody knows who has a menagerie in the area.
Well, you're assuming they would know if they can get a clear description of the beast, and it seems like nobody knows what this animal is. So if the peasants don't know what it is, why would you be like, oh, it's my escaped, lion? They would fucking run you out of town on a rail. They would burn your estate to the ground. Like, this is an epic cover-up. Like, my tinfoil hat is on. Like, if a noble did this, it's a cover-up, babe.
Wouldn't people in the town know that was like, oh yeah, that's my lord's lion? Like, it was my job to slaughter the cattle to feed the lion. And now we ran out of cattle, so that guy let the lion loose. Like, someone would have known that.
Not necessarily, because think about it, right? If you have decided that I can't afford to, like, feed my lion anymore, right? A kind person would be like, okay, let it loose to fend for itself. But like, you might just take it out back and shoot it. They might have tried to shoot it and it might have escaped. Guns famously misfired because of the climate. They weren't, easy to use. So if you kept this real quiet, it could seem like you didn't have anything to do with it. I totally believe this is a cover-up. I'm sorry. I think it was either let loose or as they were trying to kill it, it escaped them killing it and they just covered it up.
Here's another problem that I have, right? It wasn't just the local aristocracy who was involved in this hunt. I mean, we had peasants, we had other aristocratic people who were not the people who let loose the menagerie lion, right? We had the king's personal gun bearer who was involved in this hunt. He had been around the king's personal menagerie. That was part of his job. He would have no incentive to protect a specific noble person who might have lost track of their lion. Okay, in the Gevaudan. In fact, he had incentive to figure out if somebody was doing that and nail him. That guy's whole family had been involved in the king's animal-related pursuits for generations. And are you telling me this man was so unfamiliar with the concept of hyenas and lions that he couldn't recognize one in the field? Are you really telling me that none of these people involved, none of them, would recognize a hyena or a lion? I don't believe that. I just don't. Maybe like peasants in the Gevaudan who, haven't really left the surrounding villages in their area, maybe they would be confused about that, but I don't believe everybody involved here would be.
Okay, I'm going back to my cover-up for one more second because there is a lot to be gained. But the time the captain of the king's, menagerie comes in, right? The gun bearer, whatever it is. By the time he comes in, the beast of the Gevaudan has got to be something super epic. The British are laughing at them. The Dutch are laughing at them. They can't control a little wolf problem. So it really is on this gun bearer to come back with a truly fantastical creature. Otherwise, how do you save face? And if he sees it's just a starving lion, there is a lot more to be gained from making this creature a taxidermy weird thing so that people are like, wow, it really was a beast in the Gevaudan, as opposed to just like, oh, they can't handle a lord who turned their lion loose.
I mean, it's the same problem you have if it's just a starving wolf, but a lot of people believed it was a wolf. I absolutely agree that there would have been incentive for people to sensationalize this, and a lot of people did. But There's also an incentive to just be the one person who knows what the beast is. And a lot of people thought it was a wolf. A lot of people saw it and claimed it was a wolf. A lot of people saw it and claimed it was a hyena. Like, we get all these weird accounts.
Or it's just people making shit up so that it's like, it was definitely the beast because of this 6 things. And oh my God, it was so much bigger than the beast you saw. Like, I think there is like a personal amount of like bragging and boasting and seeing the most epic version of the beast.
But anyway, what Jen is kind of talking about here, I think, feeds into the next theory, and that is a mass hysteria event. Mass hysteria events, this is a quote from our Lord and Savior Wikipedia, are, quote, a phenomenon that transmits collective illusions of threats, whether real or imaginary, through a population and society as a result of rumors and fear.
Mass hysteria events don't just exist in the mind. They can cause real physical symptoms. They occur when a population is under high degrees of stress, and they can lead to groups of people having mass delusions. Haven't seen that in the modern world. Such as all having the same disease, even down to exhibiting observable symptoms. Mass hysteria events are real, they are contagious, and they can lead to some very strange behaviors. Here are some examples throughout history.
In a German convent in the 1400s, a nun started to bite other nuns. The biting soon spread throughout the convent and to other convents as far away as Holland and Italy.
Another nun, sometime in the Middle Ages, began meowing like a cat. It spread to all the other nuns, and they developed a habit of all meowing together at a certain time. It didn't stop until the police threatened to whip the nuns.
Witch trials are generally thought to be mass hysteria events, especially the Salem witch trials, which involve people developing strange symptoms and blaming them on women.
This is one of my favorite ones. So a case of, quote, dancing mania, unquote, happened in 1518, when people would spontaneously start dancing and not stop until they died of exhaustion.
So dancing manias actually are something that happened quite a bit in medieval Germany. There was not just one dancing mania. There have been a number of them. The Irish Fright of 1688 involved rumors that Irish soldiers were massacring English towns. A mass panic spread to 19 counties where people armed themselves against imaginary Irishmen.
It's wild. The Chinese sorcery scares of the 1700s, 1800s, and early 1900s were fears of quote-unquote soul-stealing or sorcery, usually directed at the marginalized.
In modern times, the panic surrounding the War of the Worlds, the broadcast program, that's a mass hysteria event.
Absolutely. There have been other mass hysteria events involving attacking cryptids and other frightening beings in the past. Spring-heeled Jack, which my husband told me all about early when I met him, the Hammersmith ghost hysteria, the Halifax slasher, and the mad gasser of Mattoon.
That's a roundup.
It's a smattering.
Yes, it's a tasting menu of mass hysteria events. Welcome to our restaurant at Ancient History Fangirl.
The wine course is definitely spiked.
So I'm not going to go into super detail on any of these, but if you Google any one of them, you will have an interesting Wikipedia rabbit hole time. The ones involving cryptids, they usually, as far as I know, involve attacks, a lot of them. So people would have like wounds that they would explain by being attacked by Spring-heeled Jack or the Mad Gasser of Mattoon or something. Mass hysteria events occur when a population is under a great deal of stress. What that stress is can vary, but it's clear that the population of the Gevaudan was stressed out. Those who visited the area wrote a lot about how poor and miserable the people were and how desperate their situations were. In fact, local men were documented showing up to mass hunts fainting with hunger, a real explanation for why they didn't join hunts, didn't perform well at hunts, and why aristocrats like Antoine might have seen them as lazy. Remember, these people were in a little ice age. The little ice age is a big part of this. The weather was absolutely brutal. I think the Little Ice Age is the real beast, like the real villain in the story. No doubt even people's backyard gardens weren't growing very well, and to top it off, the newspaper was sensationalizing everything having to do with this beast. The people of the Gevaudan were under a microscope. It was a lot of pressure.
You don't think that, like, maybe, just maybe, the people of America at this point in time are under a lot of pressure, and they could maybe have a mass hysteria event where they believed something wasn't true and allowed it to become president?
I think that absolutely has happened in our lifetime.
I mean, we'll probably cut that out, but I just wanted to say it.
No, I want to keep it.
Oh, yeah, you wouldn't think like the modern press might have had something to do with their mass hysteria event, right, Jenny?
I can't imagine what you're talking about, Jen.
The press was a huge part of mass hysteria events. Historians in more modern times point out that this was one of the first periods in history where an international press existed, and potentially you had a very literate population, maybe. News still traveled slowly by our standards, but for the time, it was unprecedented how fast and far news traveled. And what is a newspaper's primary concern? Selling newspapers. You know what sells newspapers? Stories about cryptids, true crime, and gore, the sexy, sensationalized stuff that we're still tuning into Dateline for today.
Raise your hand if you've never been captivated by stories about true crime and cryptids, Jen.
Raise your hand if you're not going to leave this podcast and go watch Dateline because it was a Keith Morrison episode.
Or go Google some of those cryptid-related mass hysteria events.
Yeah, exactly. Like we have a wild Sunday night planned under a full moon. There is no doubt the story of the Beast of the Gevaudan was sensationalized. In fact, Jay Smith mentions that newspaper editors and writers felt entitled to change the accounts of eyewitnesses to make them more sensational. Just how truthful are the most sensationalized accounts we have? Stories like those of Jacques Portefeuille, Jean Verlet, and Marie-Jeanne Vallée? Well, that's not clear.
I'm not saying that people in the Gevaudan imagine their own heads being ripped off and their throats being ripped out by the beast. I am not Louis XV.
Even if she does have his codpiece.
Look past the codpiece to see the person beneath.
That's all Louis wanted. I'm just saying.
Like, that's not how mass hysteria works. What I'm saying is that the newspapers could have magnified and sensationalized real reports of wolf attacks to the point where survivors weren't sure what they'd seen. Then the news repeated these stories and made them even more sensational, feeding the mass delusion. People who suffered or witnessed real wolf attacks could have framed them in terms of the beast, believed they saw a beast when there was really just an ordinary wolf, contextualized the wounds of the victims in the context of the beast attacks, and genuinely believed that an ordinary wolf attack was something far more mysterious and sinister.
And if they didn't believe that, if they reported a more ordinary wolf attack for what it was, the newspapers would change their story because nobody's interested in the story of that one person who was definitely attacked by an ordinary wolf in the Gevaudan when the beast was out there savaging the populace. Like, if you're attacked by a normal wolf, that's just boring.
Right, that's so boring to be the one guy who was attacked by just a really regular old wolf.
Just a hungry old wolf that was like, hey, you look tasty.
In the Gevaudan. That's just not the done thing around here, okay?
No, you have to be attacked by the epic wolf or you were not attacked.
So the people of the Gevaudan were trapped in a kind of mass delusion vortex, stronger than any that had come before. Fed by the burgeoning power of an international news machine that lived off true crime and cryptid sensationalism. They were trapped in it. They couldn't escape it. That's the theory.
I love that theory.
It's believable, right?
Oh, it's absolutely believable. And to me, a lot of times I come down on this, and I'm not going to get too much into it. I believe it's many things all at once that create sort of these mass hysteria events. Like, I believe it's not just one thing.
Here's another theory. And I think Jen's going to like this theory. The theory that the Beast of the Gevaudan was a serial killer or a werewolf. What if this is a romantasy? What if the Beast is a sexy werewolf who just wants to have your babies and impregnate you under the full moon?
I mean, I don't know because he feels really violent and kind of like a monster, but maybe he's good at his job.
He's a monster, but he's your monster.
I know, but he's eating all my friends.
Yeah, competency porn. He's very competent at eating your friends.
But, like, I can't eat that food, so how is he going to feed me while I'm starving? Like, you know?
You can't, like, ever share takeout. That's true. You just eat different things. You eat, Thai food and burgers and stuff. He eats your friends.
My boyfriend is, or girlfriend is eating all of my friends. Something's gone wrong.
And now we're really off the rails. I'm going to try and wrench us back on.
Good luck.
What if the beast was a man in beast clothing? What if it was not a beast, but a person with a penchant for blood? And not in a sexy way. We've been down that route. We've decided it does not end sexily. Stop thinking it. It's not sexy. So I'm putting serial killer and werewolf together here because they really are one and the same. And you'll see why as I go through it. Historically, but in particular in this place, in this time, Some documented instances of werewolves really were just serial killers acting out their bloody urges and being mythologized and contextualized as monsters.
Yes! Yes! A Lego set is a gift that always clicks. And clicks. Ooh, ooh, and clicks. For kids who love to save the day, choose a Lego set. A gift that always clicks.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teen accounts.
The theory is that this was a person taking advantage of the chaos to the point of putting on a wolfskin and going out and slaughtering people. Think about it. Multiple eyewitnesses claimed to hear the beast laugh and even speak. Some claimed it occasionally stood up on its hind legs and did a little dance, made a little love, got down tonight. Sorry.
Not in a sexy way, Jen. Stop it. We agreed it's not sexy.
So sometimes the beast even did this after being shot by a bullet or stabbed before flopping into a stream and escaping. So the beast dropped its beast act when it was under severe duress. Or so it might seem, right? And we've written about this time period before, I in particular. We covered it in an episode that we released a couple weeks ago called Catholic Werewolves. And as we've said many times, during a specific time from roughly the 1400s to the 1800s, Europe was plunged into a little ice age, and life became extremely precarious for populations all over Europe.
We know we've said this so many times in this episode, but, drink every time we bring up the little ice age if you want to be blasted.
And it always kills me because there were frost fairs on the Thames, a tidal, brackish river where half of it is salt water and the rest is fresh, froze. It froze. That's wild how cold it would have to be. So, during this time period, witch trials were common. So were werewolf trials. For several centuries throughout Europe, while women were being persecuted as witches, men on the margins were tried and executed for being suspected werewolves. They could also be witches, and women could also be werewolves, but it tended to skew more men towards werewolves. France's werewolf problem was especially bad. Between 1520 and 1630, about 30,000 people were executed for being werewolves in that country alone.
And as resources dwindled in the difficult environment of the Little Ice Age, wolf attacks on people became more common. This is just in general throughout Europe. They're anywhere that wolves were. People started fearing and lashing out at wolves, and at the same time taking advantage of the lack of resources and chaos, and perhaps driven by hunger to cannibalize, human murderers thrived. And people started equating wolves with villains and murderers more strongly in their folklore. Werewolf mythology already existed, to be clear. We've had episodes on werewolf mythology going back to ancient Greece and Rome. There's also werewolf and other were-animal mythology in many other cultures worldwide. In this particular time, and even all the way back to the Greek and Roman period, werewolf mythology was already associated with starving times and cannibalism, so it already fit. But around this time in Europe, people started seeing werewolves as a huge super wolf that acted with human intelligence to murder people, usually busty young women. Men styled themselves werewolf hunters and made money hunting these werewolves. Sound familiar? In our Catholic Werewolves episode, we talked about how some historians believe that werewolf mythology evolved in Europe to explain not wolf attacks, but human attacks, the activity of potentially serial killers.
There are some quote-unquote werewolf cases documented in France that were most likely human serial killers. For example, Guy Garnier, who operated in the area of Dole, France, about 250 miles north of Gevaudan, in the 1570s. His target prey was children, and he was spotted at least once with the body of a child in his mouth. He strangled his victims before eating their flesh.
And yeah, this is like not in the Gevaudan. It's in a different region of France, and it's like a couple hundred years earlier, but it does sound pretty similar, right?
It sounds super similar. Like wolves and other predators, human serial killers tend to target women and children. Not exclusively. They also target other people, but they look for more vulnerable targets. This is perhaps a reason folklore of the times involves children being attacked and either being killed or fending off their attacker around the age of 10 or 11. Kids that age are old enough to have meat on their bones. Yeah, because they're getting ready to go through puberty, and to be worth eating, but not so full grown as to be a physical threat. I mean, if you've ever watched a kid who's going to go through a growth spurt, like they have extra fat in different areas before they start shooting up.
That's like the age at which a lot of kids feature in dark fairy tales and folk tales, you know, where they're like targeted by a witch who's going to cook them in the oven. Like this comes from somewhere.
And at this point in time, particularly if a child is going to go through a growth spurt, they are ravenously hungry, you know, because their body needs the extra calories so that they can grow. One of the most famous stories of cooking and eating children is Hansel and Gretel. And what does she do? She just wants to fatten Hansel up. Like Gretel, she keeps just working because she's not that interested in that stringy girl. But the brother, let's fatten him up and eat him.
Right. So you're saying people were fattening up children and then eating them.
In some fairy tales, I don't think not in everything. Yes.
I don't think we gave the trigger warning at the beginning like last time about the violence that was going to occur in this episode. Apparently, I didn't realize we're going to have a very extended conversation about child cannibalism.
Apologies, we have to talk about these things because it comes from somewhere. Like Frau Holly and that cave of bones.
We've done whole episodes about child cannibalism as related to Santa Claus, so I think people know what they're going to get from us by now. Anyway. So could the beast, Jen, have been one such as this, a serial killer with a taste for the human meat, perhaps driven that way due to starvation? Think about it. Everyone was hungry. Not only were the beast's chosen victims women and children, the same as serial killers, most serial killers, not saying all of them, but most of them, but it seemed to have a preternatural ability to outwit its pursuers, almost like it had human intelligence. There are many accounts of the beast assaulting someone very soon after a major hunt failed, as if it were mocking the hunters. And it disappeared almost like it could slip out of its beast skin and hide in the populace, hide in the villages, hide in the very hunting groups pursuing it. That would make it very, very hard to hunt. So let's take a closer look at a specific person involved in that hunt, Jean Chastel.
Oh.
Yeah, let's take a closer look at him. The man believed to have finally taken down the beast, perhaps due to the power of prayer. That always makes someone suspicious, right?
I mean, the way things are going nowadays, yes.
So the first time Jean Chastel crops up in the sources isn't when he shoots the beast. And it takes some digging to find this because most of the sources you find initially on a superficial look don't talk about this. You have to go into those blogs run by armchair history enthusiasts who translate the original documents from French, right? Or you can look at Jay Smith's book. I think it's in there too. Anyway, he doesn't crop up in the sources first when he shoots the beast. He shows up first in 1765, 2 years earlier, when the king's gun-bearer, François Antoine, was the lead huntsman. I think this is the last guy. In August of that year, two of Antoine's comrades, Louis Pélissier and François Lachesnais, both men in the households of local aristocrats, were planning to pass through a stretch of forest they weren't familiar with. They asked none other than Jean Chastel and his two sons, locals loafing around in the inn, I guess, about the best way through that forest. Specifically, if there were any marshes, quicksand, anything of that nature that they should be aware of. Remember, there were not any roads, so they had to do this local intel thing. "Oh no," said the Chastels. "No marshes, nothing to worry about here. That forest is as clear as it can be." Anyway, the two men took the Chastels' advice and marched straightway into a bog. So this is more serious than perhaps it sounds. J. Smith says, quote, "Pélissier became mired in a bog so deep that he sank in it up to his waist. His horse escaped only with great difficulty, and Pélissier later testified, 'I thought I would die.'" Meanwhile, the Chastels, the dad and his 2 sons, sat nearby laughing at them and not helping out at all.
So the 2 men managed to get out of the bog, and they emerged furious. Blows were exchanged, guns were drawn. The Chastels wound up in prison on Antoine's orders. He was firmly on his men's side, and I don't blame him. Death threats were flung around. Antoine himself wound up being roped into this, and he was pissed. Remember, he's like almost an octogenarian at this point, right?
Yeah, he's like in his 70s.
So this was one of the major reasons Antoine's relationship with the locals, once a lot better than his predecessors, began to devolve.
So we already know that there was some bad blood between Jean Chastel and his family and the aristocratic outsiders leading these hunts. That's one thing we know about him. We can suspect at least that he had no respect for the nobility. He was the kind of guy willing to play a prank. There might be a long history of his region and his family's bad relationships with the other guys leading hunts before that, right? He was also a known poacher. That was probably what he was doing in the woods when he shot the beast. There was a large hunt going on in the area at that time, but sources I've read point out that he wasn't actually participating in that hunt. He was not always on the right side of the law.
So, wild speculation abounded from the moment Chastel's shot rang out until the present day. Speculation that perhaps Chastel himself was playing a wider practical joke on the whole region. One speculative theory goes that Chastel had his own personal menagerie, which included a hyena or perhaps a large wolf that he'd trained to attack humans.
Now, this goes back to your theory, Jen, that somebody was breeding wolves to attack people. Or dogs. It might have been dogs.
Well, I don't think they were necessarily breeding them to attack people. I think it could have been one specific type of dog that had babies, and that might have started off as a dog-wolf hybrid. I don't think it was like specifically to kill people, but I think it got out of hand.
Well, that is the theory about Chastel, is that he was breeding dogs or hyenas or something to attack people.
I mean, that's pretty dark. That's darker than I took a Chastel, and I go dark. So it's said that he let this animal run wild and attack people until eventually he killed it when things started to really get out of hand, roughly 3 years in. But that seems like he let it go way too far.
Like, he eventually was like, all right, I guess I just better shoot my, trained hyena or whatever, wolf dog, whatever it was. And so, like, that's why he was the one to shoot the beast. That's the story.
Well, I kind of don't buy that because, like, he didn't get any money out of it because he waited too long. Like, by the time the king's, like, dude came in and, like, took care of the problem, like, nobody was going to get anything anymore. The king considered the problem solved. So, like, if he was gonna get money off of it, he would have killed it, like, before he pissed off Antoine.
Right. The real masterstroke would be for him to kill the beast right when the king announced the biggest ransom, but before any of these hunters made any progress, and then collect all the ransom money himself. Like, that's what he would have done, I would think, if he was really pranking everybody.
Yeah, if you consider it a prank, which I don't know that it was. But there's another theory, Jenny, an even darker one, that perhaps Chastel was the killer, donning a wolfskin and going out in what started as maybe practical jokes to scare the locals and became a more serious blood sport. I don't think it was ever a practical joke. I think if he was a serial killer, he was a serial killer the whole time.
Right. So, what do we think, Jen? Of all the theories I've walked you through and you've walked me through and we've talked about together here, what do you think is the most convincing?
To me, I'm really a everything everywhere all at once, right? I think it's a little of column A, a little of column B. I think you definitely had a human predator out there. It wouldn't surprise me if Chastel was a human predator. Like, remember, people are starving. This guy's a poacher. He knows the area. He knows how to evade being caught. Like, I get that on one side. It would not surprise me if it was a rogue wolf or hyena or lion that had escaped or been bred or whatever. And I do think, when you have newspapers sensationalizing things and you have people really experiencing incredibly hard times, you are susceptible to mass hysteria events. Like, I feel like I'm living through one in some ways. I kind of see a little bit of everything.
I'm surprised the beast of the Gevaudan didn't get elected president. I mean, honestly.
Are we sure he didn't?
Are we still in the Gevaudan, all of us? We never left.
We never left. It's like Rome. It never fell, and we're still in the Gevaudan. But, I feel like the environmental factors here are so important. We talked about it in the first episode and not as much in this episode. Like, the terrain was incredibly rocky. You had these rolling, freezing mists, lots of snow, and There's an eeriness to like snow when it falls, right?
This is an eerie environment, for one thing. It's eerie. The beast is eerie. The heart on its chest is eerie, you know? Like, there's so much about this that is strange and eerie and unexplainable. And that's what makes this story so compelling. I agree with you in the everything everywhere all at once thought, in that, like, I also agree with you that, like, I don't know that this could have been the story that it was without the Little Ice Age.
I don't think it could have been, but I'm not going to go back to my nutritional deficits, but I think that is also something that plays a part here, you know, because of the Little Ice Age, because of the starving times. So I think like at a different time period when the weather was different and people were able to like have a better subsistence and farming was better, you don't have the beast.
Potentially, if your theory is that the beast is an animal just looking to feed, and if survival was better, maybe the beast wouldn't feel so compelled to attack people, is one theory. If it was attacking for food, I mean, there are so many things I find compelling about various explanations. Like, I do find potentially it was a displaced lion or hyena, particularly a lion, compelling. I think the mass hysteria event, no matter what was happening, that was absolutely a part of it. That's undeniable. And I think that no matter what else was part of it, the Little Ice Age was absolutely a huge factor. That's undeniable. Which brings us back to the starvation, which leads us back to, of course, Jen's nutritional deficit theory and all it entails, because that kind of touches on everything, but also the starving times, the cannibalism, that leads us to werewolves and serial killers. I feel like inexplicably drawn to that, even if I don't 100% believe it.
There were so many people starving, and there were so many victims, many who weren't reported. It might not have just been one cannibal. It might have been several cannibals because people were hungry and they were going to do what it took to survive. And I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying like that is something that could have been happening.
Oh, you mean you're not saying it's okay? I thought you might have been saying it was okay.
I am very firmly not saying it's okay.
Leave it or not. You might get a different impression based on her behavior on this podcast usually, but she is not pro-child cannibalism.
Or any cannibalism.
I'm agnostic on that. You know, if you're starving and the child is got some meat on his bones.
The thing is, like, babies and little children, they do, if they're going to go through a growth spurt, they do have meat on their bones, those little chubby cheeks.
This is where we've ended up as a podcast. We're doing great.
One thing we can be sure about is that the beast of the Gevaudan became the template for modern werewolf mythology today. It was a vicious animal, at least resembling a wolf, larger and more cunning than other wolves, far more formidable, and intelligent enough to invade hunters for 3 years in difficult territory. Ordinary bullets couldn't take it down. It was, possibly, able to transform into a human and slip into human populations, making it nearly impossible to find. It could only be felled by a silver bullet, or so they say.
There's no certainty here except that this was a tragic story. For the 116 people who were killed and the hundreds more grievously injured, and the hundreds of wolves that were killed as well, and for the beast itself. Take says, quote, "The more one learns about the history of the beast, the more it reaches tragicomic traits. The events were tragic because of the many dead and injured people, but they were also tragic for the beast that was forced to survive under constant persecution in an alien and extremely hostile world." And that's the end of the story of the beast of the Gevaudan. Now you know all about it.
And now you can see why I chose not to include it in Catholic werewolves.
It was the right call. Join us next week for whatever we're doing next, whatever that may be. In the meantime, join us on social. We are most active on Instagram at ancienthistoryfangirl.com. And you can join our Patreon for extra episodes at patreon.com/ancienthistoryfangirl.
Your support on Patreon is the only reason we can keep the podcast going. Without you, we wouldn't be able to do this. It's a full-time job and times are really tough. So we appreciate all your support, particularly our patrons. If you are unable to support on Patreon, we know it's difficult. Please leave us a nice 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. Those also help.
It's a starving time. Don't make us come and eat your children. Just join the Patreon.
Yeah, thank you all for your support and for listening.
That's really going to get us a 5-star review.
I'm just ignoring her, people, because if it was up to her, she would have poisoned you all. Like, I'm the voice of reason here.
I don't think you are the voice of reason.
I mean, I go to the darkest timeline. I've been called a pink goth, but I am the voice of reason here.
I I disagree. I don't think there is a voice of reason in this podcast. Maybe Julius Caesar. Oh, don't tell him I said that. Don't tell him.
Oh, no, don't. That's twice you've said his name. Shh. He's not coming out this podcast. We're almost done.
I'm not telling him about the Feast of the Gevaudan.
He would claim responsibility for it and say it was one of his ancestral animals that he created to seek revenge on the Gauls, so let's not.
We move on immediately.
Moving right along. Thank you all for your support. We hope that you've enjoyed these episodes, and we will see you whenever we see you next.
Have you ever wondered how inbred the Habsburgs really were? What women in the past used for birth control? Or what Queen Victoria's 9 children got up to? On the History Tea Time podcast, I profile remarkable queens and LGBTQ+ royals, explore royal family trees, and delve into women's medical history and other fascinating topics. Join me every Tuesday for History Tea Time, wherever fine podcasts are enjoyed.